Hello, and welcome back to the Alfology2 podcast. Those of you who are consuming this via YouTube will be able to see my face right now, because that is right. I have invested in or bought a video camera, a webcam to record these podcasts. It's mainly just because on YouTube at the moment it's a little bit difficult because I have two options. Either I don't put any visuals on, I just put a blank card at the back, which isn't really very, very visually appealing, or I make a slideshow, and honestly the slideshows take so long to do. They're like half an hour episode of the moon cheese took me a good I think it was 3 hours to make the slideshow, which is very tedious and honestly not really worth it. I don't think it adds anything to the enjoyment at all, if there isn't any enjoyment. So what I wanted to do is just record me talking, which is a little bit more visually appealing. Not that I'm the best looking bloke in the world. I find it very, very uncomfortable using the camera. That's the first thing. I don't have a lot of experience in being filmed talking or talking to cameras. The microphone was hard enough to get used to. So really today's episode is just a test in that respect. It's just a practice for me talking into the camera. And for that reason, the subject matter of this podcast, which I'll talk about in a bit, it's probably not the most thrilling one. So be prepared for that. The problem with this way of doing it is I use a Mac and I don't have any video recording software. I use QuickTime Player, which is built in. And that means I pretty much got to do this in one take. The other podcast has been very, very stop-start. I've been able to listen to clips back and pick the right clips and weave them together. This one I've got to do in one go because otherwise it's a bit of a nightmare. So trying to cut out the ums and ahs. I will edit this video afterwards to sew it up a little bit better, but really mostly I'm going to try and do it in one take. So I need the practice is basically what I'm getting at. It's a bit of a test episode, but it will be an episode nonetheless. The final thing is that I'm trying to record this in a new room. I've never recorded in here before. I've just moved back to my hometown from Dublin yesterday, so I'm living with my mum, and this is the office room in her house. So I'm just getting used to all that. And I'm going to spend the next couple of days, bearing in mind I've got a bit of free time, recording some new episodes. So again, it's a good time to do some recording of it, or some test recording. Anyway, the topic of today is Alfology number 1. So Alfology2 is obviously the second Alfology. There was an original one, which was created, I think it was 2012, about 7 years ago, by me when I was at school, when I was in sixth form, 17, 18 years old. And what it was an attempt to annoy the nerds at my school. I went to a grammar school, which was fun. I went to an all-boys grammar school. You had a lot of good fun there, but it did contain a lot of brain boxes, a lot of really smart eggs who are also very arrogant, and you're sort of told at grammar school that you're better than everybody else and that you're one day going to be running the world. And it's complete bollocks. But when you're a teenager, I guess you buy into it. So there are a lot of very arrogant people there, and I've probably put myself in that. I'm arrogant enough to do a podcast where I talk on my own into a microphone and say that people are going to listen to it. So I'm not excluding myself from that, but there were nonetheless a lot of very clever, very arrogant people. And they're very, very set in their worldview. No matter what their worldview is, they'd be very set in it. So being the sort of wind-up merchant that I am, I would often take the piss. And the way I took the piss, in this particular instance with Alfology1, was I created a list of new science laws which I had written and I proclaimed was the truth. And all they were was sort of populist nonsense. They were probably things that now haven't aged very well. I guess I was just reading them back now, and it's things like the Earth being flat. Like, it was sort of funny back then when everything hadn't got really crazy and right wing and populist and scary and Donald Trump fake newsy. It was all kind of a little bit of a joke. Oh yeah, isn't it funny that electricity doesn't really exist? And now that people have genuinely co-opted things like that and are using them to be anti-truth rather than just to wind scientists up, and I think it is scary. So maybe some of these haven't aged very well, but they are there nonetheless. And I'll just talk you through what Alfology 1 was and how that worked. So 11 laws of Alfology were as follows. We had number 1, the atoms don't exist and the stuff is just made out of stuff, which honestly, if you tell a scientist or a science enthusiast that atoms don't exist, or that you question how atoms work, they flip out. So basically what they say is, oh, okay, what is stuff made out of if not atoms? Sure, it's just smaller bits of stuff. Like, you have a piece of wood and you cut it in half. You have 2 smaller pieces of wood, and if you're making wood smaller and smaller and smaller, then you'll just get into smaller pieces of wood. And they say, well, aha, I've got you. Because that's what atoms are. They're just really small pieces of the stuff. And I go, well, yeah, but you're saying that they're made up of 99.9% nothing, and that electrons and protons and neutrons and tiny little bits and quarks. I think that's a thing. So I get a lot of response from that. And honestly, the whole thing about atoms being 99% nothing, that's gotta be bollocks, isn't it? Like, you think about it, and they say 99.9% of every single thing in the world is made up of nothing. It's just wide open space. They describe it as like a ring road going around a football stadium, and a football going around a ring road. And that's how much empty space there is. That everything in the middle of that ring road, in that whole football stadium, is nothingness, and then the neutron is like the center circle. I think I've got probably should have researched it before I did this podcast, but yeah, that is pretty much. So they're saying that there's just a huge amount of nothingness. If you boil down all the human race into just you took all the nothingness of every member of the human race, it would be about the size of a sugar cube. Which, that's got to be fucking nonsense, doesn't it? Like, if you look at a sugar cube, they're tiny, absolutely miniature. Like, if you compare that even to just me, I am massive in comparison to a sugar cube. And if I clap, then why don't my hands go through each other if they're 99.9% nothing? You can't. And if you ask a scientist that, they go, oh, it's forces. What do you mean fucking forces? Forces between nothingness. Get fucked. Get fucked. So, yeah, basically, atoms don't exist. That was law number 1. It's probably the one I'm most passionate about, I guess, because there's no real way to explain to someone who's not a scientist what atoms are. And I know they do some really, like, smart sums and stuff, but surely the essence of very existence of matter should be reasonably easy to explain. So I'm not really so sure on that one. And following on from that, we have law 2, which is metal is metal and wood is wood, which I think I don't really remember writing that one. And sort of that blends into number 1, isn't it? It's just like little bits of the same stuff. But I think that the point is that people were talking about metals on the periodic table and all these different types of metal and welded metals, blended metals, and all this. And I'm just saying, it's all just metal. It's all just the same. Like there's only one element for that, and that's metal. And you just change it around a little bit, and you've got different metals. And I think that was basically it. But I don't remember that one, so we'll move swiftly on. And the third was that isotopes can fuck off. Again, Don't really remember that. I don't really remember what an isotope is. I think it's something to do with the number of neutrons or protons or electrons. One of the bits that makes up an atom is the number of that in a nuclear thing, and it changes how the nuclear stuff works. As you can tell, I'm a real expert on this stuff. And I think that potentially I must have been made to learn about them. And as a result, I told them that they can fuck off, which in hindsight, not a great scientific law. Probably not going to win the Nobel Prize for that one. But you never know. Maybe some scientist will come along and go, oh, yeah, Alfie was right. 2012, he figured that out. Yeah, isotopes can fuck off. Anyway, so yes, number 4. Space isn't that far away. 1,000 miles tops. And some brain box are going to say, well, actually, space is only like 10 meters above where you are, and everything's space. So, okay, well, fair enough, space and time and general relativity and all that. But what I'm talking about is like stuff that's in the sky, right? You're looking at like stars and the moon and the sun. It's not actually that far away. It's just smaller and closer. I'm not having it when scientists talk about like black holes being 54,000 million light years away. And it's like, well, how do you know? How can you judge that? How can you look at that and go, oh yeah, that's a billion light years? Like, what? Also, light year. I think they've gone too far with light years. Like, light year is as far as light can travel in a year. And according to scientists, we'll move on to this in a second, but according to scientists, light travels really fucking fast. Like incredibly fast. Like 93 million miles in 8 minutes fast. That's about how far. 93 million miles in 8 minutes. And they're saying it's a billion years of that away. And we can fucking see it from here. Nonsense. It would be too small. Doesn't matter how powerful your telescope is. That's too small to see. Like, that's too far away to be able to see. So not having that. It's about 1,000 miles tops and just smaller. Like the moon's probably, I don't know, the size of a skyscraper. It's just, 20 meters away. That really got on the nerves of some physicists. Saying that it was 1,000. Oh, the other theory was that it was all painted on a board. There's someone who put a board up there, and it was just on like a conveyor belt, and you could just pull the conveyor belt round, and that's how day and night works. So you get the light one time with the blue background, and then at night time you get the black background with the stars on it, and they just pull it around, which actually could be true. And I guess. Not until Richard Branson sends me to space on a holiday am I going to believe it that it's all there. So, like, until I've been to the moon, which maybe in my lifetime could happen, I'm not having space being that far away. So we shall see. We shall see. Number 5. I guess this is probably just more of a joke or a pun than an actual scientific law. The periodic table is just a calendar for the menstrual cycle. So it's just a woman's calendar to show when she's ovulating, etc. Get it? Periodic table. To be fair, that is hilarious. So, well done me. Typical 17-year-old who goes to a boys' school humour that. And honestly, I still quite enjoy it. When I was writing these down, doing the research, I did actually go, oh yeah, that's pretty funny. So well done me there. That's law number 5. Periodic table, just a menstrual cycle. Very good. Number 6 is that we should do away with technical terms. So by technical terms, I mean things that are made deliberately confusing so that only scientists can understand them. Particularly talking biologists here. Like they'll talk about technical. I should have probably read up on some technical names, but they're talking about technical names for body parts in particular. and they'll call it the Latin name. And you say, what's that? They go, oh, it's your arm. Why don't you just say my fucking arm then? Why make it? It makes it seem like it's harder than it is. So you feel like you don't understand. You have to trust them more. It's a big racket. It's a lie. And the scientists do this all the time, and lawyers do it as well. And lawyers are the biggest cocks for it. They make up their own confusing terms, which actually mean really simple things. And then you get scared by those confusing terms, and you don't engage, and you pay them to engage for you. So it keeps them in the job and it keeps their wallets nice and lined. So I'm saying that we should do away with those technical terms and replace them with less technical terms. Replace them with terms like your arm and your leg and your head and the sun and the stars, star number 5, for example, rather than giving it a technical name. I think that's probably generally a good idea across the board. I think things don't really need these super technical names in a lot of spheres where they do have them. So if we bin those off and get some, that would be probably beneficial for everybody. So I am actually in support of that one as law number 6. So very good. Number 7, when light is on, it's on. When it's off, it's off. It does not travel. So that does actually shit on my whole light years thing earlier. Should have thought about that, but I didn't. So what all this means is that like when you switch a light on in a room, it goes on, doesn't it? Like it doesn't travel anywhere. You can't see it. You just know that the light is on. And then when it's off, it's off. Light is invisible. You can't see it. You can only see the effects of it hitting stuff. Something to do with it making photons. And scientists tend to have 2 ways of looking at light. They either say it's a wave or it's a particle. And they basically change their opinion on whether it's a wave or a particle, depending on whether it suits them or not. And I know that gets into quantum theory and the collapse of the wave function and stuff, but that can't be the case. It really sort of has to be one or the other. And I think it's potentially neither. So when it's on, when the light is on, it's on. When it's off, it's off. When there is light there, it's there. When it's not there, it's not there. You're not waiting for it to travel to you. It's not traveling anywhere. It's not pinging off anything. It's just there, or it's not. Like matter, I guess. Maybe it is a particle. Fuck. Anyway, sorry. No. Sticking my guns. It is either there or it's not. And certainly doesn't travel. And on that basis, if light does travel, okay, it's seriously technical here. If light does travel and you were to build an airtight, reflective room, so like a small box or a room, which is completely dense, so you can't get through it. You can't shine light through it. Light doesn't get through the cracks in it or anything. It's completely dense. And it's reflective, so it's like a mirror, like a big 4-walled mirror with a ceiling and a floor. And you were to shine a light, and light does travel and bounce off stuff, and it is a wave, which is always bouncing off different things. Surely that light, just one flash of it, not permanently on, just one flash of that light, would ping around that reflective room forever. Because it's not going anywhere. It's not being absorbed. It's not dissipating anywhere. It's not shooting off into space. But as far as I'm aware, that wouldn't happen. Which means that light doesn't travel. It's just either on or it's off. So my theory actually works there and theirs doesn't. So what I'm saying is that for the second time in 2 episodes, I've really shat on Einstein. Really, really, really stuck it to him. So think about that one, scientists, if you're watching. Brian Cox, if you're watching, which I'm sure you are. Think about that and answer me why that light is like that. But you can't because I'm right. Anyway, number 8. I really used to get on the nerves of the science nerds with this one, which is air is just oxygen, that there is no such thing as air, that all we do is we breathe in oxygen, and that's how we survive. And then you get them to give you these really complicated breakdowns of what air is, and they'll start telling you, no, it's 80%, it's 80% nitrogen, and it's 10% carbon. And you go, nah, it's just oxygen. That's what they tell you when you're a kid, isn't it? You need oxygen to survive. It's the air. Breathe it in. Can't survive without it. So air is just oxygen. That's that one. Number 9, I'm not so unsure about this one. I think that number 9 probably might have an element of truth to it. And electricity is magic. And I think that it might be, actually, electricity being magic. Like, it seems to be so instant that when you switch something electric on, it doesn't have any time to warm up. You just create that circuit and it's just on. And electricity just seems to be there. And it's almost like it wasn't there before we invented it or we discovered it. And then we discovered it and it was. And it is a bit of a magic trick. And I've never really heard anyone effectively explain to me how electricity works. And I know it's about the movement of electrons within metals and stuff like that. But surely those electrons can't be moving that fast. What happens when you switch off? Do the electrons just go back to where they started? Or do they correspond to the next bit? Well, obviously electrons don't exist, but like it's got to be magic, isn't it? It's just can't be real. Electricity is magic. That's what I'm getting at. That's all I'm going to say about it. And if you weren't brainwashed at school or uni or by newspapers about electricity, and someone told you, oh yeah, it's magic, you'd be pretty convinced by that, wouldn't you? So yeah, number 9, electricity, magic. Number 10, core. This one gets under the skin of people who aren't science crazy nerds. That's that evolution didn't happen. And I don't mean this in like it was created by God in 7 days thing, even though that would have really got the rage into these science people. What I mean by that is that people have always been there. Animals have always been there. Some have died out along the way, hence fossils. But other than that, we've always been there. Oh, and people, evolution nerds, evolution fanatics, they don't like that one. They don't like it up them. They get really frustrated by that. And I can see their point, to be fair, because there is pretty much some serious evidence for evolution. And evolution deniers are actually very dangerous people as a whole. The creationists in America and stuff like that, they're really, really sort of scary people. So maybe after all these years, I might want to withdraw that a little bit. But even so, it was great fun at the time, getting stuck into the science people about that. And the arguments used to have, the rage that I get them into, yeah, evolution. People have always been there. Since the beginning of time, there was no beginning of time. Time is infinite. People have just always existed since forever. Oh, and the veins popping out their head when you tell them that. It's a sight to see. And law 11, and the final law, is that Calpol cures everything, even colds. I think the even colds bit was because I'd learned that colds are uncurable and that Lemsip is a lie. And I think that is true, that Lemsip is a lie. It just temporarily relieves your symptoms, doesn't cure anything, and it is basically impossible to cure the cold because the virus mutates so often that if you were to cure one strain of it, within 2 days, there'd be another strain and you'd be fucked. So, but I was trying to explain that how Calpol is so good. It's fucking delicious, by the way. I had it recently and I had toothache and I had Calpol. Oh, that's the stuff. How it cures everything. Calpol just makes everything better. And would even go so far as to kill off a mutant disease such as the common cold. And to be fair, actually, that one didn't annoy anyone. No one will. It's almost too ridiculous, I guess. It doesn't really annoy too many people. And I think everyone likes Cowpole. Everyone has good memories of their mum giving them a spoonful of Cowpole when they were a kid and go, oh, and you're buzzing when you get that. It's the nice pink one. You go, oh, fuck yeah, big spoonful of that. That'll sort my headache right out. They do it in a syringe now, by the way. Technology's moved on. They syringe it into your mouth. You open wide, you shoot it into the mouth. That's how Cowpole works in 2019. Which, to be fair, is fucking awesome. The spoon is redundant. And I actually understand why, because you use the same spoon again next time they were ill. And it was still have all their fucking nasty virus germs all over it. So you'd be spooning more germs back into your kid. And the syringe, you just put it out and squirt it in. So I do understand the new Cowpole method. And Cowpole's great. I think they should probably advertise this podcast and so everyone can know that it cures everything. So the summary of Alfology 1 was basically shit happens and we shouldn't care why. Which, when you tell scientists that what they do doesn't matter and that no one cares about it, it topples their worldview to such an extent that they're so arrogant in their confidence in what they do and how it's good for the world, that as soon as you even suggest that it's not, they have a mental breakdown. Even in these fucking ridiculous, none of this is serious at all. All of this is just nonsense. And still, even though it's complete bollocks, they bite and they get involved and they get stuck in and they want to fight you over it. They want to argue with you about it. And the flat earth thing is the same. I haven't mentioned it here, which is probably a good thing, bearing in mind flat earthers have really, really fucking lost their shit these days. But if you say to a science person, a science enthusiast, oh yeah, well I went up in a plane, I looked out the window and I couldn't see any curves, so therefore the earth must be flat. They fucking lose it. They absolutely go mental. And I just don't understand it, really. I just don't get why they're so serious about it. And even when they know you're on the wind-up, they still can't help but have a nibble. And it's just mental to me. Anyway, look, so that is Alfology 1, and that is basically this test episode. Feel like I've done okay in front of the camera. It hasn't been too bad. It hasn't been too much of a struggle. Been quite the monologue. I do need a drink now. This is going to probably take a little bit of editing, but on the whole, it's gone well. Got a few new podcasts coming out. Or not coming out, that I'll be recording in the next few days. I will be furiously going through a few of the topics that I've got, mainly just because I've got these days free. I've got to stay home looking after my dog at the moment. So I'm just going to be rattling through these podcasts. They will be released sort of slowly over the next few weeks. The aim is certainly over the summer of 2019 to release a podcast every Wednesday and Sunday. And then maybe we might drop the Wednesdays event going forward at some point and just do Sundays once a week. But certainly in the short term, they will be Wednesdays and Sundays. So I'll record a few episodes the next couple of days. I'll change my shirt for those of you watching on video to make it seem more authentic, even though they're all going to be recorded sort of back to back. And they will be released sort of slowly and shortly. In terms of the upcoming stuff of the podcast, I've got a couple of guests lined up. Some of them more interesting than others. I've got some actually quite interesting guests with some interesting accomplishments. And then I've also got some just people who are just my mates who want to come on and talk shite. And honestly, I'd say I'm equally excited about both of them. Talking shite is my speciality, but also it might be fun to interview some people who have done some interesting stuff. So that's coming up. And do tune in for that. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. And I do appreciate if you've got through this one, because I realised that was a tough ask. Things will improve over the next couple of weeks. I promise you I've got some more interesting topics to talk about. And finally, do subscribe to the podcast, whatever medium you're going through. Either subscribe and click the bell on YouTube, or if you're on Apple or Spotify or Google Podcasts, whatever, subscribe, download the podcast, listen to it, listen to the historical episodes. it's not really sequential. There might be a couple of episodes which are going to be linked, but so far it hasn't been sequential, and it probably won't be going forward. It's not going to be really like a series. So do go back and listen from the start. I think maybe things are improving as we go and getting more confident with the microphone. The episodes can be longer, getting better at the production side of it. I've bought better equipment, so that will be there going forward. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and do tune in next time, which will be released on Sunday. Thank you very much.